Peace, love, and light, y'all. It's your girl Morgan A. Myers tuning in with y'all for another reading of No Disrespect by Sister Souljah. I'm on chapter 3 now. I read the author's note to the readers, chapter 1, Mother, which was about her, the author's lifestyle growing up with her mom and going from a two-parent home with kids to moving to the project when her mom being a single mom and a different life and style in the projects. Chapter 2 was talking about Nathan, the guy that she met in college and fell in love with, and by the end of the chapter he confessed that he had been fighting demons and actually was attracted to men. And so now we are in chapter 3. And it's actually a little shorter than both of those, so I'm going to just read it all the way through, but this is called Nikki, so I'm going to just hop right into it. Chapter 3 of No Disrespect by Sister Souljah. Yeah, right. Brian sipped his beer, sitting on Nikki's couch with his feet propped up on a chair. His voice was low and relaxed, the calm sound of a working man after a hard day's work and a cold drink. He was speaking with authority on the topic of women. If anybody was an expert on the subject, it was Brian. A college junior majoring in business and mathematics, he was also a track star. In between his studies and athletics, he managed to hold down a part-time job at UPS. For me, as for many women I knew, Brian was a fantasy. An intelligent brother who had his shit together, was rumored to have a big dick, and was comfortable with being a strong black man. I listened carefully as he continued. See, where you brothers mess up at is trying to handle too much at one time. You need to find yourself a good woman and cool out with her. That way you can concentrate on all the other things that gotta be done. You see, once you start all that lying, you gotta remember what you said. You be standing there sweating and fighting, got women screaming and crying all the time. Who needs that? I mean, a brother like me needs some peace of mind. Art, the brother Brian was talking to, was unimpressed. He had his own ideas about women. Art was a basketball player who everybody called Slick because of the way he would routinely fake out his opponent before taking him to the hoop. The nickname came as well with his easy way with the women on campus. It was strange to me how these two managed to be best friends when their outlook on life was so different. Even though they were hugely competitive with each other, it was clear to everyone that they shared a real brotherly love. Slick wasn't giving Brian an inch. Man, you give these bitches too much credit. These ain't the times of your moms or mine. These girls are hoes. They don't have no respect for themselves. Man, that's why you gotta stick and move. Don't invest no time in them and damn sure don't get in none of your loot. They living fouler than the dudes. They be lying. They be gassing the nigga's head up, making him think he the only one. Then you catch that nasty hoe sucking your best friend's dick. Nowadays, when you catch them, they don't even have the decency to make up a good excuse. They start popping shit about it's my body, you don't own me, I can do whatever I want to do. That's when you gotta bust their ass. That's if you give a damn. Brian smiled his cool, calm smile. It wasn't the first time he had heard Slick's philosophy. He looked as though he thought Slick was just talking. I remember him once telling Nikki that he knew Slick wanted to have a girl in a relationship just like theirs, but he likes to front too much, that's all. Brian continued to lecture. See, your whole attitude is wrong. That's why you keep meeting women who act like that. You don't have no respect, man. First off, every woman is a bitch to you. So you attract those kind of women because all you want is a stick and move. A nice girl ain't going to be down for that. Slick jumped to his feet. He always let Brian get him hyped up. Man, what you looking at is experience. You can laugh if you want. You can preach all that shit. What in the hell is a nice girl? I'll tell you what another name for a nice girl is. A sly bitch. Because the nice girls be the worst ones. You know how many nice girls line up after a hot basketball game with their panties and a toothbrush in their overnight bag just waiting to get fucked? Ask me how many hoes I had on their back who had boyfriends, fiancés, husbands. Man, you ain't even got to do nothing for pussy these days. You should know that. These were the conversations I enjoyed listening to. I was living at Nikki's apartment for the summer. I had to take a college course and didn't have the money for a dorm room or an off-campus apartment. The commute from college to home was too far. Nikki and I had met during the school year. I would see her from time to time at the campus cultural center. We belonged to different student groups, but they both had offices in the same center. I was a member of the African Student Organization, which sought to protect and advance the services and rights of African students. Nikki was a part of an organization which raised money and sponsored all the entertainers, conferences, and speakers. My organization was highly political and idealistic. We didn't have time for money. Nikki's organization was strictly money and business. They didn't have time for causes, movements, and politics, so we stayed separate. We even badmouthed each other from time to time. But I used to watch Nikki because I found her interesting. She was always dressed up like like a woman. While most of us wore jeans and sweatshirts, Nikki wore expensive dresses and suits like a professional. Her outfits were always complemented by the right accessories, designer bags, soft leather shoes, things that most of us didn't think about or at least delayed because we knew we couldn't afford them. She always had long, fancy fingernails and perfumes that filled the whole center with a pleasant and sweet smell. She drove the latest model BMW. Even though she was a member of an organization, she never hung out at the center like the rest of us. She always moved in and out swiftly as though she had a full schedule outside of her activity at the center. Nikki was light-skinned from Louisiana. She always had a fly haircut. Her big eyes drew the attention of many men, but you could tell that she was always in control. Her body was thick but not fat. She had big athletic legs from her high school days as a track star and a small waistline. Nikki liked watching me too. One evening, I was in the downstairs office at the center waiting for the secretary to bring out more paper for the copier. Nikki came in to Xerox some bills. "I see you around here all the time. You know people have a lot of respect for you." I smiled and thanked her and introduced myself. She put her hand on her hip and said, "Come on, I know your name. What do you think? I'm stupid? I've seen your name in the school paper enough times." Her big eyes looked over me from head to toe. "You're a real pretty girl, too. I just thought I'd tell you. Most of the time, us women don't compliment one another without being suspicious, but I like the way you hold your ground and stand up for yours." Yes, Nikki was unusual. She was bold and unintimidated. She quickly assumed control of the conversation. Leaning over to me so no one would overhear her, she said, "Listen, I want you to have some things that I think would make you look nice. If I pull them together, would you accept them?" My mind raced around for a response. I thought to myself, if she was offering clothes, I could definitely use them. Like many college students, I was broke and repeating the same old wares. But then I wondered why she wanted to give them to me and what she wanted in return. I rejected the notion of her being gay because everyone knew and was jealous of the fact that she was going out with Brian. Many women had tried to take him away from her but couldn't, so I decided to accept the offer. We drove in Nikki's expensive new car to her apartment to get the clothes. The BMW had a plush leather interior, fancy air fresheners, and a computerized display board with an Alpine car stereo that sounded as clear as speakers in a recording studio. She punched in a tape that had hip-hop, reggae, and rhythm and blues music. She bobbed her head and feet to the music. You could tell she loved it a lot. When the beat excited her, her foot would lay heavy on the accelerator. Within seconds, we were going over 60 miles an hour on small residential streets. While terror gripped my heart, she handled her stick shift with ease as if we were only doing 20 or 30 miles per hour. Minutes later, we arrived at her off-campus apartment. I was surprised. It was not furnished, not with the usual cheap wooden student just getting started furniture. She had a leather couch and a love seat. There was an area for dining with the dinner table and chairs. There were candle holders on the table with 2 used candles inside and hardened wax dripping down the sides. On the walls were pictures of children in playful poses. I assumed they were her relatives. She motioned for me to come into the bedroom. She put her things down and immediately swung open her closet. I could see instantly that she had all kinds of clothes. Her closet was overstuffed with her belongings. She started to go through her things, and I continued to look around, trying to piece together the puzzle of this young woman who I found to be a mystery. Her room was very feminine, or at least the way a girl's room is portrayed in a Disney movie. Her windows boasted curtains with frills and plenty of lace. She even had a vanity table with a big mirror on the wall. On this table was what seemed like every color of nail polish available: polish remover, cute little dishes, cotton balls, knickknacks, hairsprays, body paints, and seemingly every brand of perfume ever made. Pasted on the mirror in the shape of squares were small photos of Nikki in different clothes, including bathing suits and fancy hats. It seemed from the pictures that she thought of herself as some kind of model. Meanwhile, Nikki began making a small pile of the items she wanted me to have. It included a couple of leather skirts, silk shirts, dress pants, and a couple of dresses. She went to her vanity table where her jewelry box and took out some costume jewelry to go with some of the outfits. Then she began to look for a belt and then went with a pair of pants. Then she began to look for a belt that went with a pair of pants. Goodness. Then she went to look for a belt that went with a pair of the pants. She ended up pulling out a box filled with what seemed like 100 pair of panties, the Victoria's Secret type, all kinds of tropical fruit colors with different types of cut, styles, and strings. There was no shortage of matching camisoles and bras. I had now concluded that Nikki must come from a financially well-off family. There was no way the average college student could afford all this, not even if she just came from a regular old middle-class family. Just then, the belt popped up. Nikki pulled it out from the back of the closet from behind the box the panties were in. She got up from the floor, exasperated from the search. Taking a deep breath and with a friendly smile, she said, "All right, that's everything. I'll get a nice bag to put it in." I looked at her curiously and said, "This is some expensive stuff. Do you want any of it back?" She put her hand on her hip and rolled her eyes at me as if I had said something ridiculous. Then with an attitude, "Don't even try it. That's why I asked you if you minded in the first place, so you wouldn't start freaking out, acting all suspicious like there was some trick involved. I already told you I'm giving you these because I like you. You have guts. You're a fighter. Most of us don't give a damn about nobody but ourselves. So if I give you these things, it's like I helped out in some way. I don't have no time to join any movements or go to any more meetings, and no, I don't want the clothes back." "Thanks. I'm sorry," I said, feeling a little embarrassed. "Besides, girlfriend," she said with flavor, "I can see that you're so into the black thing that you need somebody to help you out in other areas." "Like what?" I said, but I really understood exactly what she meant. She meant that I could use some new clothes and a new hairstyle and all that. To be honest, I had stopped caring so much about that stuff since Nathan and I had broken up because I didn't see any guys on the horizon that were serious-minded and worth the effort. I had let myself go. I be the same way, y'all. I got friends. Every time I see her, she be changing my outfit, and I don't try to get offended because she really loves me and cares the best for me. And with me being a poet and a speaker and in the public view, I don't be giving a damn half the time. I don't be getting my hair retwisted like I'm supposed to. I wear the same thing, but people have been donating me clothes as well, and I understand that appearance matters in my line of work, so I'm working on that. So it's cool when people are into other stuff that you're really not, and they can assist you with what you do to help make you successful. Come on, girl, you know what time it is. Why would somebody as pretty and intelligent as you are not get all you can get? You already have people listening. Now it's time to turn on the charisma, and I can tell you, now it's time to turn on the charisma that I can tell you have but refuse to use. Here, sit down. She pointed to the chair at her vanity table. She took the rubber band out of my hair. Then she pulled out her curling irons, her crimping irons, her combs, and barrettes. She said, "I hope you don't mind, and I hope you're not in a rush." To tell the truth, this whole experience was so different from my normal routine of debating and politicking and community service. I was entertained. I wanted to know more about Nikki because I felt her to be so completely different. I agreed to the makeover. Nikki and I rapidly became friends. She made me feel comfortable. I was flattered. I had seen her slight other people whom she didn't like. She had a way of isolating those she wanted to prevent from coming near her, leaving them with nothing but the air of mystery that surrounded her. I was glad she had befriended me. She was helping to revive my spirit. She had me dressing up, painting my nails, and using my body, as she put it. She told me that if I was to find a man, I had to put more music into my hips. Much of what she was teaching me I already knew, but had deliberately pushed to the back of my mind and agenda. Some of the other stuff, however, was strictly news to me. Friday was Nikki's girls' night out. She told me to meet her at the apartment at 8 o'clock sharp. First, we were to pick up Latasha, one of her other girlfriends, and then head to some happening club. When I knocked at the door, I was surprised to see Brian Davison's tall, dark figure. I recognized him immediately. I had seen his picture in the sports pages in all types of painful yet victorious poses. He was even more powerful looking in person. He was wearing a tank top and long shorts. As he opened the door, he rolled his eyes at me. It was obvious he wasn't expecting my company. I looked toward the dining room and noticed the table was set for two. Even though I wasn't an eater of red meat, my nose never lied to me, and I could smell the steak broiling. I immediately became annoyed. I felt that even though I was invited, I was being made to feel like an intruder. I wondered why Nikki had me over if she was supposed to be chilling with her man. I introduced myself. Brian's face changed from aggravation to respect. He took my hand with his big, warm, strong hand and said with seriousness, "Keep up the fight, sister." He offered me a seat. It was always curious to see how men reacted to the outspoken political women on campus. He sat on the opposite end of the couch, assuring me that Nikki would be out in a minute. Soon Nikki emerged from the bathroom, followed by a cloud of shower steam. She had on her bikini panties, no bra, and was still slightly wet on top. She smiled and said, "Girl, don't even panic. You know how I get. I have to feed Brian and drop him at work by 10. I have to stop by my mom's for a second, and then we can go. Oh, we got to pick up Brian at 3:15. You know he works the night shift for UPS." If I had known all this, I would have stayed home. Then Nikki said in her lively way, "Girl, you can have some dinner too." I glanced toward Brian, expecting him to give me a disgusted look. Instead, all I got was a welcoming smile. I was surprised. Nikki quickly steamed some vegetables for me and gave me her baked potato and salad. We all ate together. On Brian's plate was steak, homemade gravy, baked potatoes, bread rolls, spinach, and salad. I had never pictured Nikki as the cooking type. She seemed more like the on-the-go TV dinner type. I was wrong. She was a perfect hostess. She pranced around her kitchen now, wearing her bra and panties, plus her heels. Brian, it was obvious, was completely in love. I imagine it was probably Nikki serving home-cooked meals and her sexy, slinky panties that kept him entrapped. But there had to be more to their relationship than sex. I could see that he clung to her every word, no matter how trivial. There was no trace of the blank, disinterested stare that some brothers displayed when a woman was talking. He took no notice of me at all. In fact, he had barely looked in my direction since opening the door and greeting me. That was fine with me. I saw it as a sign of his loyalty to Nikki. When dinner was over, Brian disappeared into the bedroom, looking tired like one does after a heavy meal. Nikki stayed with me. As she quickly washed the dishes and cleansed the kitchen, she said, "Don't worry, girl. We'll get out of here soon. I know you're ready to loosen up after this hectic week. I know I am." She laughed as she went into the bedroom to change her clothes. Alone for the moment in the living room, I realized how much I envied Nikki. I too needed someone like Brian to smile at me and wrap his big arms around me. I too needed to feel safe and secure. But instead, tonight all I would have was the beat, the rhythm, and the rhyme to seduce me and then help me forget that I would be in a club filled with undesirable men who probably had no principles or real goals in life. Suddenly I realized that I had been waiting for Nikki for nearly 30 minutes. Where was she? I was ready to leave. I got up to use the bathroom, which was adjacent to the bedroom. The bedroom door was open a crack. With a single glance, I saw Brian's long legs, naked and spread eagle, across the bed. Nikki was sitting between his legs on her knees with her head in Brian's lap. She was sucking his penis ferociously as though she were in a bobbing for apples contest. I froze. Brian's head lay on the pillow. His eyes looked glazed and the veins popped out of his strong neck. He moaned as if there wasn't a better feeling in the world. Nikki was now licking Brian all over, always coming back to the center. She ran the tips of her long nails over his skin lightly and he let out a gentle moan. Then she grabbed his balls and gave a last pull on his penis with her lips. That's when I heard him grunt. Then in a shocking move, he began to whine like a baby while his body shuddered. Nikki pulled her head up and caught my eye at the door as my foot pushed forward in an attempt to make it look like I was heading toward the bathroom. I saw her smile at me, letting me know she knew I was watching. Once in the bathroom, I flushed the toilet, even though I never used it. I turned on the faucet and splashed water over my hot and embarrassed face. As I dried it with the towel, I wondered how I could fix my face to appear that I had not seen anything. It wasn't that I was Miss Innocence. I knew Nikki and Brian were a couple, and that's what couples did. I had been in a few positions of passion before, but never had I seen a woman so confidently in control of the sex. Nikki had made her man cry. That was a surprise. In the car, I sat in the back, of course. Nikki glanced at me through the rearview mirror. When we arrived at UPS, Brian gave her a big hug and thanked her for the dinner. He slid his tongue into her mouth for a last taste and told her he loved her and would see her at 3 when she came to pick him up after work. I joined her in the front seat. As soon as I looked at Nikki, she started laughing. I started laughing too. Then Nikki said with no shame, "That's right, girl. Some women think they're too cute to suck dick. Take it from me. That's a female who wants to lose her man. If you really want to keep a man, you have to suck it, and you do it right. You can't be sloppy and biting him now, girl. If you do it right, you can turn him out. They give you anything you want. Me and Brian been together for a year and a half. He's my heart. I love him. Any woman who tries to steal him is looking for a fight." "Do you think y'all been together because of sex or because he loves you?" I asked. "Both," she said. "Listen, don't be stupid. Stupid women separate the issues. Never underestimate the power of sex. It's about 85% of any relationship." I rolled my eyes in disbelief. "Girl, men are freaky. All men. You'd be surprised the things they think about. Most women don't know, so they lose out. Men like the little things, like good smells. A sweet-smelling woman can steal the attention away from a regular, plain, and simple, clean-smelling girl. Girl, you know I have flavors for days. I have fragrances specifically for my neck, the back of my knees, my feet, in between my breasts, and my you-know-where." I smiled, listening intensely to the most dramatic woman I ever met. "For men," Nikki said, "it's all about pleasure. It's the way you stand, walk, bend over. It's the variety, the positions, and keeping it interesting. It's your underwear, colors, styles, cuts. It's environment. Things like how bright the lights are, how soft the linen is, what it smells like. Some stupid women lose their men because their house is too damn dirty. While she sits around trying to figure out what's wrong and goes out and gets a fly haircut, the real problem is she hasn't changed the sheets for 3 weeks and her underarms stink." Listening to Nikki was like going to the theater. I was no dummy. I was mentally taking notes, even though I disagreed with some of her points. The fact was, she had a good man for over a year. I had none. Plus, her talking kept my mind off her driving, which made me nervous. The car began to slow down on a back street in South Jersey. It was pitch black except for a small, faulty street lamp. She stopped the car. I thought she was lost. Still smiling, she casually said, "Hold on a minute, I'll be right back." I tried to damp down my rising panic and said, "You getting out here?" Nikki didn't respond. She popped the trunk and went out to the back. She pulled a Macy's bag out and started walking toward the curb. I heard her yell out, "Sandy!" Just then, a tall, petite woman emerged out the doorway. Then flickering light lit one side of her face. I could see her face was dirty and her lips and hands were swollen. A sick feeling shot through my body, a feeling of fear, sympathy, disgust, and anger. I remember that look from the projects. Sandy, I could tell, was probably a heroin addict. From the looks of her skin-tight dress, she probably was also hooking. Nikki took out some clothes out of the Macy's bag. I heard her say, "Here, it's getting cold out. I figure you could use a couple of sweaters and a pair of long pants. Are you all right? Are you taking care of yourself?" I wonder who this woman was and how Nikki met her. I had always thought of myself as someone who did community service, but I had never been brave enough to bring clothes to drug addicts who prostituted themselves for dope in back alleys at 10:30 at night. Nikki got back in the car. We sped away as if nothing had happened. She didn't say anything about it. I was smart enough not to ask. A few minutes later, we slowed down again. This time, we were on a busy street. The houses old style, broken down, row houses badly in need of repair. Although it was late at night, there were plenty of kids outside. Hair uncombed, shoes dirty, foul language. Everybody looked unhealthy. The only clean-looking, well-dressed youths were the one who were obviously hustling. Everybody had one thing in common. They all knew Nikki. "Hi, Nikki. What's up, girl? How's college? Yo, give me a ride to Fat Boy's house." Nikki looked at me, still smiling, and said as she parked, "Come on, girl. You don't have to sit in the car." Assuming we were coming to pick up Nikki's other girlfriend, I followed Nikki into into one of the ramshackle old houses. The door opened into a living room that was furnished with cheap furniture, the kind covered with plastic slip covers. We walked through the living room into the kitchen. Nikki ran and hugged an older woman who, from her complexion, hair, and eyes, I took to be Nikki's mother. Nikki introduced me with pride as if she were proud to have me as a friend. As I said hello, her mother looked me over with a phony smile. I could tell at once that she was possessive over Nikki. As Nikki rattled on about my political work on campus, her mother cut her off, making it clear that she wasn't interested in any of my accomplishments. "How's school?" she asked. As they talked, I kept wondering where Nikki got the money for her fancy car, a nice apartment, designer clothes, and expensive furniture. It was obvious that it wasn't from her mother, whose circumstances weren't much better than my own mother's. "Yeah, me and my mom go everywhere together," Nikki said with a little girl's innocence. "She's my best friend." I figured she was telling me this more for her mother's benefit than for mine. It was as if she would let her mother know that even though I was a new friend, I was no threat to their tight relationship. I was starting to feel uncomfortable. I took my Essence magazine out of my pocketbook and pretended to read it. Just then, Nikki's mother asked, "Did you see your dad while you were out?" "No, I didn't. He's supposed to be out jogging. I don't know what fool jogs this late at night. He left here about 6 o'clock. It's 10:30 now. By now he should have reached Philadelphia." She laughed sarcastically. I didn't look up from my magazine, but I could hear Nikki exhale as though she wasn't interested in hearing my mother's complaints. But the complaining continued. "Now, of course he's been jogging every single night for the past month. I guess that makes him a professional." "Now, Ma, you did your dirt in your day, so ease up off Daddy. That was the past. The past don't matter. I'm talking about what's happening right now, today. See, your father's problem is he wants to kick dirt in my face. I never did that to him. I always conducted myself with class. I didn't bring no menfolk to our house. I didn't leave no telephone numbers laying around. I may have gone out to play, but I came back in time to have his dinner on the table. Now, your dad came in here the other night with some Virginia Slims and a gold cigarette case in his back pocket. So I asked the fool why he started smoking at such an old age, and isn't it hard to puff on a cigarette while jogging at the same time? But he's a magician, you see. He has answers for everything. You know, Nikki, you should talk to him. He loves you. He'll listen." "Is that why you asked me to stop by mine?" "I asked you not to put me in the middle of this stuff. I love you both. Besides, like I said, you did your dirt, so what's the big deal? I have nothing to do with it." Her mother's eyes glistened with tears, but they did not fall. She poured herself a drink and said, "I told you I stopped messing around. But you didn't stop for Daddy. It was the hysterectomy that slowed you down and took away your desire." "Daddy's a man. Do you really expect him to lose his desire because you did?" I got up, embarrassed, and asked where the bathroom was. I wanted to let them finish what seemed to be a very personal conversation. When I returned, there was a man in the kitchen. I assumed it was Nikki's father, although he looked a good deal younger than his wife's faded beauty. He stood there in his jogging shorts and sweatshirt with strong runner's legs. He smiled at me as if he were 20 years younger and single. As Nicky introduced me, he walked toward me with his eyes roaming over my body. He held his hand out. Instead of the generic innocent greeting, he gave me a warm, inviting touch, pressing two of his fingers firmly into the palm of my hand. So you're the little girl I saw on the cable station debating with that politician. Girl, you did a good job. I smiled and turned slightly away from him so as not to anger the mother any further, but he went on. Yeah, when my baby girl told me you were one of her friends, I said, baby, you're in good company. But you know, you're in good company too. My little girl's a genius. Did she tell you she's a mathematical wizard? I'm real proud of her. He took me to see Nikki's trophies, certificates, and awards from high school. He even had a pair of her infant baby shoes. While flipping through the pages of her modeling portfolio, he told me Nikki was his favorite, the best one. He added that of his 5 children, she would probably be the only one smart enough to make something of herself. I watched him carefully as he slipped slyly in and out of 2 separate personalities. One was the proud father. The other one was a younger-looking man who wouldn't mind meeting me in a hotel room later that night. Lord. Meanwhile, Nikki's mother attempted to act like she didn't know what he was doing, and it took a lot of vodka for her to convince herself. Nikki's father finally took note of her reaction, said goodnight, and headed upstairs. Then the front door swung open, and a man who turned out to be Nikki's brother came running in. Baby girl, he shouted as he picked her up. How's school? I know you busting those grades out. Nikki's mother exploded. Good grades? What you know about good grades, boy? Did you walk out of here with my color TV this morning? Because if you did, you better find a way to buy it back or pay me back. He frowned, eyebrows connected in the middle, and said, Ma, why you always got to show out when company come? He turned to Nikki. Baby girl, who's your friend? Damn, she's pretty. Big titties and all. The mother threw her hands in the air and said, she's not interested in you. She don't want no fool who don't have no money, and every time he gets hold of $1, smokes it up. The brother shot the mother a hateful look. Nikki stepped in between, placed her hand on her brother's shoulder, and guided him into the hallway right outside the kitchen, but we could still hear their conversation. You seen Todd? She asked. He's around the corner at the spot. How you know? You told me you stopped smoking. I did, baby girl. I wasn't buying nothing. I took the shortcut through the block on my way to Geeter's. Baby girl, you got $15. You know I do, but I can't give it to you because you don't know what to do with yourself when you have money. Listen, don't be a big mouth. I'm in a program. I ain't living like that no more. I need the money to get around. I'm looking for a job. I heard her pocketbook snap open. Later, she told me she gave him $50. After saying goodbye to everyone, we headed to the door. He only asked for 15. She gave him 50 and he ain't good with money? That ain't smart. After saying goodbye to everyone, we headed to the door. As soon as Nikki opened it, I could see a brand new 190 Mercedes-Benz blocking Nikki's car from leaving. Before I could take another step, a dark figure startled me as it emerged from the darkness on the porch. Nikki smiled, a sweet little girl smile, and said, Ty, what's up, baby? What you doing here? You know my lookout told me he seen your ride. I decided to check on my stuff. Your stuff is all right, Nikki said, running her hand down the side of her body. And ain't nobody been messing with your stuff. They both started laughing, and Todd shrugged and tongued Nikki down. You still coming tomorrow night? She asked in a seductive, begging voice. Yeah, but it'll be late. Fucking around with you the other night, I lost out on some loot and had to bust some ass. Don't be so tight on the dollar, Nikki teased. I have to be tight on the dollar with you spending my money. Look, handsome, I work. Yeah, but you spend more than you work. But it don't matter. My girl don't have to work because I got that covered. Todd's face was that of a man totally in love. It was as if I wasn't even standing there. His big rough hands were moving all over Nikki's body. He grabbed her butt and let his hand settle there like he knew that ass well. Nikki was facing me, so I gestured that she should give me the keys so I could sit in the car and wait. She let go of Todd and said, Oh, I'm sorry, girl. I'm all rude and everything. She started to introduce me, but Todd wasn't interested in meeting me at all. I got the point. I took the keys and sat in the car. Eventually, Todd walked Nikki over to the car. As he was pulling away in his Benz, he leaned out the window and said, Don't forget, I want curry chicken and you wear the blue one. He smiled and winked, then left. Nikki smiled at me. Girl, next time you gotta say, Come on, Nikki, I gotta go or something. You know how men are. They'll take up all your time if you let them. She laughed, turned the music on, and sped away without bother to explaining anything. As we headed toward Latasha's home, I tried to understand Nikki. Why would she gamble her relationship with Brian when she had told me that she loved him, when he treated her so well? What did she need Ty for? How did she work out the two relationships when Brian practically lived in her apartment? And wasn't it peculiar how different Brian and Ty were? Who was the girl in the alley? I also thought I couldn't get one man. Nikki had two. Tom seemed as into her and under her spell as Brian obviously was. I had watched with a mixture of dismay and admiration the way she used her body, speech, stance, clothes, and everything to manipulate men. I had always thought of myself as attractive and even calculating, but Nikki had me beat. When we reached Latasha's house, she was standing on the curb in her pumps in the dark, unafraid, waiting for us. She was not a college student, or at least I had never seen her on campus. She was short, brown-skinned, hair with finger waves, sporting big earrings, boasting a tight dress. Her face was rugged and experienced, but not unattractive. As soon as I opened the car door to let her in, she started talking. "Nikki, you know that guy Mark I met at the club that time? Girl, he can go. You know how backed up I was anyway. When I got him in my bed, I tried to break his back. He surprised me though, girl. He got right with me. We did it 3 times. He was much better than boring ass LaKim with his no-hitting on nothing self." "Mark? Which one is that?" "Tall, light skin, wavy hair, mustache. Oh yeah, that one fine ass Troy brought to the club long time ago." "Hey, whatever happened to Troy?" "Girl, he got married. They say the good ones always do." Nikki laughed and said, "He ain't that good. He still comes around sniffing and begging for my stuff. He had the nerve to come messing with me one afternoon. When we were done, he opens his briefcase and asked me to pick which of his wedding pictures looked the best so he could blow it up, buy a frame, and give it to his wife as a wedding present. His wife had never even seen the pictures yet." The car filled with laughter. "Nikki, you know you're the shit. Let her have him. Let her have all the headaches. We'll take his pockets." Speaking of pockets, did you tell LaKim about the pregnancy? "Yeah, he's so stupid. He went for it. So now I can get my coat off a layaway next week. I told him the abortion costs $500. He told me he knows a place where I can get it much cheaper." Girl, that's when I screamed on him. I told him, "What you think I am, some cheap hoe or something? I go to a good doctor, a private doctor. He's the only one I feel safe with, and it costs $500. Girl, I had him apologizing and damn near in tears. He promised me his whole check, and I get his check next week. The only thing I could do to keep from busting out laughing was think about my new coat and those fly matching boots. That's how I stuck to my story so good." Then Latasha asked Nikki, "What about you? Did you get your money?" Nikki looked at Latasha through the rearview mirror sternly. "Did I get my money? Girl, please, I got $1,500. I told 3 different fools. You know how I get once I get in that mall. I had to go on an all-out campaign." I couldn't contain myself. "Nikki, you told Brian you were pregnant when you weren't?" Nikki cut her eyes at me and said, "No, girl. I told you Brian's my honey. I wouldn't mess with him like that." I decided to keep my mouth shut. Nikki and her friend were obviously out of my league. Oh my God. Girls be doing that. They be telling niggas that they pregnant and they not to get $500 out of them. Ooh, I would go down there with her. If I was a man, I ain't gonna give you the money. We can go together. I care that much to see to it. The club was live. It was different than partying on campus where everybody knew each other and things often got boring. This club was a place most students would never go to. Most college kids didn't party with people from the community, and people from the community were never invited on campus, not unless they want to pay $3 to $5 more than students paid for the same event. Prices were deliberately hiked up to discourage their participation. Community folk usually thought of college kids as uppity. College kids usually thought of community folks as low class, uneducated, and prone to start fights. The club I was being taken to was in a neighborhood where people seemed down to earth, a place where you could be yourself. Guys didn't act like they were cuter than the women. Women weren't acting like they didn't want to dance. There seemed to be an unspoken agreement that we were all there to party, get loose, and forget our problems. Nikki seemed to almost know everyone, especially the men. More important, she knew all the workers and bouncers. We didn't have to pay to get in. When the guy at the door saw Nikki's face, he lit up like a flashlight. Nikki, who I was quickly learning had a knack for planning things perfectly, had left her coat in the trunk of her car and was now using her body to get everything we needed. She boldly went up to the doorman. "What's up, Big R?" she said, swinging her body back and forth. "Jam-packed tonight," he said, watching her breast bubble out of her V-neck tight cinnamon-colored sweater. "I brought my girls, you know, Latasha," and she introduced me. Before I could say hello, his attention had bounced to Nikki's small waistline and then moved to her light-skinned legs that were proactively exposed by her tight brown miniskirt. Next thing I knew, we were inside the club, easing our way through the packed house. Latasha tapped my shoulder, leaned over, and said, "Follow Nikki straight to the bar. She'll hook up everything." As we got to the bar, I noticed immediately the bartender, who had a beautiful mud brown complexion, a round face, and round brown eyes. His beautiful teeth glistened in the small light at the bar, but I realized swiftly that it was Nikki who brought the pleasurable look to his face. "Ah, shit," he said. "My girl, what are you having?" Nikki quickly said, "2 rum and cokes and 1 cranberry juice with a twist of lemon for my other girlfriend." As he turned away to prepare the drink, she tapped his arm and asked, pointing at me, "Vernon, do you know who this is? Have you ever seen her face before?" "No, but I wouldn't mind knowing her." Nikki then told him that I was the girl on campus that was giving those damn racists hell and looking out for black interests. He responded with a simple, "Well, all right." Then he turned to Nikki and said, "Donovan said to call him in his car as soon as you got here." Nikki went to the other side of the bar and picked up the business phone. Fighting to eavesdrop through the loud music blaring in the club, I could only hear a few words. "Yeah, baby, I know I had to make a few stops." "Okay, baby, in 10 minutes. Nikki drank her drink down and waved goodbye to Vernon. To me, she said, "I'll be right back." I turned to Latasha, but she was already on the dance floor working up a sweat with some brother. I moved through the club looking for a corner to unwind and groove to the music. When I found it, I started to move first my hips, then my feet, and wound up my waist. I started up slow, but I knew as I let the rhythm hit me, I would be transformed. But I had to let go of my thoughts. The tragedy with Nathan still haunted me. I quickly snuffed out that thought and let it go. I thought about organizing on campus and let it go. I thought about the countless men who killed my interest in them as soon as they opened their mouths. I let that go. As I painted the walls of my mind black, I felt free. Dancing was my narcotic. The only way I knew hours had gone by was when the DJ put on a record I hated and I lost my musical high. At that point, I spun around on my feet and found myself face to face with an uninvited, greasy partner. Now, I didn't mind a brother coming up and dancing with me. Many had. But this one had jerry curls. As a rule, I couldn't stand to see a black man with a perm or jerry curls. This particular man had sweat, Vaseline, and curl activators sliding down his face. I moved away to find myself a new spot. I glanced at my watch. It was nearly 2:30 in the morning. I began to panic. True, I was having fun, but I realized I hadn't bumped into Nikki all night. She was my ride home. I wasn't interested in stumbling around this particular part of town in the middle of the night. Plus, public transportation didn't start running again until 5:30 a.m. I began looking for Latasha. This is back before cell phones and Uber, guys. I spotted her at the bar talking to Vernon. She obviously had had too much to drink. Her words were slurring, and she was trying to throw herself at Vernon, who didn't look even mildly interested. Why should he? I thought. He must see women like her every night. I tapped Latasha's arm and asked if she had seen Nikki. She laughed and said, "Don't worry, Nikki will be here at 2:45 like clockwork. We'll meet her outside on the other side of the club." "How do you know she'll be there?" I asked. Latasha rolled her eyes and said, "'Cause it always works like that, okay? She's with Donovan. He owns this place. He's paid. Why should she stay here and shake her ass in the club when she has the guy that owns the club who'll give her anything she wants?" At a quarter till, Latasha and I were standing outside across the street from the club. A Jaguar pulled up to the curb. Nikki was in the passenger seat. Donovan was driving. He looked about 47 or 48 years old, the color of chocolate cake. He had a black, silky clipped beard and a mustache. He was sporting a nice fat diamond pinky ring. He also had a conspicuous princess cut diamond wedding ring. As Nikki eased herself out of the car, he grabbed her hand as if he wasn't ready for her to leave. "Next time, don't stay away so long." 2 weeks, Donovan. That's not a long time," Nikki said with homegirl attitude. "Now go home and play with your wife and kids." He leaned his head out the window and said softly, "I told you I'd give them all up for you, but you just keep running, and you know you're too fast for me." Nikki bent over. She leaned in his car, letting her breast rest and spread against the top of the window. She licked her lips and said, "Just think of me as something you like to eat a lot but can only afford to have occasionally." Then she stood up, put her hand on her hip, and shifted the weight of her body to one leg while seductively resting on her toes with the other one. "Good night, Donovan." He smiled as he started the car, and she said, "Just remember, I never eat anything I can't afford." He motioned. Okay, wait a minute. "Good night, Donovan." He smiled and he started the car and said, "Just remember, I never eat anything I can't afford." He motioned to Nikki to come closer, and when she did, he handed her a stack of $50 bills and simply said, "See you soon, I hope." $50 bills. Okay. A stack of $50 bills. Okay, not $50 in ones, a stack of $50 bills. Oh, okay. As Latasha and I got in Nikki's car, I noticed that Nikki was now wearing a completely different outfit than the one she had on in the club before leaving to see Donovan. Latasha couldn't stop kissing Nikki's ass for having gotten the money out of Donovan. I suspected she admired Nikki for being able to do the things with men that she had tried but failed to achieve. After dropping Latasha off, she swung by UPS to pick up Brian. As he got into the car, Nikki casually mentioned that the sorority party that she and I had gone to was boring. She told him that she decided not to pledge AKA, but instead would pledge Delta. Then, in a sweet, innocent voice, she told him how she had to go back to her apartment early to change her clothes, having spilled ink, she said, on the brown miniskirt while she was writing her mother a check. She added that she told her mother to stop chewing the tops off her pens because it made them leak. I began to pity Brian. He was too beautiful a brother to be played like that, too desired by many others, and too rare an opportunity for any woman to blow off while she weaved a web of lies and deceit. But I didn't dare say anything. Brian was too enthralled with this long-legged Louisiana girl whose every step had turned him into an obedient Play-Doh. The thought of her cheating on him had apparently never crossed his mind. He was simply happy to have this light-skinned beauty add, as he put it, a touch of class to his life. Besides, Nikki smiled at him with the face of an angel. As the weeks and months passed, I realized more and more that my friendship with Nikki was peculiar. I knew that she represented some of the traits that I hated most. At the same time, there were many good things about her that kept us close. I had read somewhere that a man could be judged by the men he surrounded himself with. I assumed that this adage also applied to women. Why then did I continue to hang out with Nikki? We were such opposites. Perhaps I was living vicariously through her wild sexual adventures. Maybe Nikki was doing things with men that I secretly wanted to do, but didn't have the guts to act out. In the end, I decided that I didn't respect Nikki, nor did I want to live her life. After all, I had been scarred as a child by the carousel of male faces I saw going around and around my household. But I wasn't completely off the hook. I figured it was the power Nikki had over men that kept me fascinated. It was a power I wanted to have, to be in control, to call the shots and not be left with a heart full of tears and mind full of questions. I felt I could learn this power. I could get for once what I wanted. One successful relationship rooted in mutual love and respect. The kind of relationship I originally thought Nikki had with Brian. So I decided to study her, to see what I could learn. I was convinced it was more her style and attitude than her looks. After all, I knew a lot of cute light-skinned girls who weren't controlling their relationships. Their emotions had been dragged around and casually tossed in the gutter too. Watching and learning from Nikki wouldn't be difficult. It may sound strange, but even though I didn't respect her, I still loved her. She'd been a loyal friend to me and was very considerate. She'd often sacrifice her own schedule to take me home from late-night organizational meetings and rallies. She unselfishly shared anything she had. Moreover, she loved children and had been supportive of community service projects that involved children. She empathized with my feelings, and she had a good sense of humor and was able to lift me up when I was down. She never tried to influence me to do harmful things like drink or smoke. She was constantly reminding me not to neglect myself or studies. She was someone special. The following summer, Nikki again allowed me to stay in her apartment while I attended summer courses. What I had seen during the school year was nothing compared to her summer adventures. The more Brian worked and came home to turn over at least half his paycheck, the more Nikki tricked. One evening, I sat at the dining room table preparing a research project. Throughout the day, 3 different men had come to see Nikki at 3 different times. They all ended up in her bedroom. When I asked her how she could sleep with 3 different men in one day, she simply smiled and said, "It's easy. I take showers in between." The most skillful episode I watched her pull involved Barry, a middle-class married businessman. He became so obsessed with Nikki that he arranged to have a private answering service with the phone company receive her calls and instructions concerning their meeting times. She used him like a washing machine. She acted strict with him like a mother. He, in turn, acted like an obedient child, serving her every whim. She told him that if he wanted to take her out to dinner, he would also have to take me, her starving roommate. Nikki would leave the time on his answering service. He would arrive in his car. We would meet him downstairs. We would end up at one of many fancy restaurants. He would charge our shrimp and lobster dinners on his credit card. By the seventh or eighth time, I watched as his face darkened when the bill came. His lust, however, was great, so he swallowed the bills, which by now I imagine had him going broke and his wife in an uproar. Barry would sit at the table and try to romance Nikki as though I wasn't sitting there with them. When he would get up to go to the bathroom, Nikki would tap my foot under the table, laugh, and remind me to order everything I wanted. My heart dropped the night that Barry showed up at Nikki's door while she and Brian were enjoying a quiet time at home. I figured the game was finally up. Nikki would definitely be busted this time. I tensed up with the thought of the kind of fight that I was sure was about to happen. I was sitting, reading on the couch, when Nikki had answered the door. Barry stood there in the doorway like a whipped puppy waiting to be asked in. Brian demanded, "Who is it?" Nikki, to my astonishment, casually said, "Oh, it's for her." I looked up from my book and saw her pointing at me. Then she shot Barry a mean look, which let him know to follow her lead. I put my book down and said, "What's up, Barry? Come on in." Nikki went back over to Brian, bent over and kissed him with her tongue and said, "Come on, baby, let's go in the back and give them the privacy they need." As they went to the bedroom, I motioned to Barry to sit down. He sat. I rolled my eyes at him in disgust. It was about 7 or 8 minutes, about the amount of time it must have taken Nikki to tell Brian her next lie. Nikki emerged from the bedroom, leaving Brian inside. She was finishing tying her robe shut. Then she put one hand on her hip and moved close to Barry, pointing her finger until it landed square in his face. "Look, sweetheart," she said in a bitter voice, "if you come here and I'm with my man, you tell him you came to see her." "Okay," he whispered as if he had violated some rule. "And do not come here unless I invite you. I'll call you. No surprises. You get it?" "Got it." He fell right in line. "Now get out." She opened the door. He left meekly. Over the next several weeks and months, there were many times when Barry would call the house and end up talking to me. One day, I finally summoned the courage to ask Barry why an attractive, successful, married businessman would allow himself to be abused by a woman the way he was abused by Nikki. He told me that he was addicted to the sex. I told him he struck me as a man who could get sex from anyone he wanted. He didn't disagree, but he said that what he wanted was good sex. Nikki was the only black woman he knew who would have anal sex with him. He had always had, he confessed, a wild fascination with big butts. With Nikki, he not only got the best sucks ever, he got to have sex with her from every position and in every area imaginable. He described her ass as the best feeling in the world. I could tell he was becoming excited just telling me about their sessions together. He told me about the day he came by with groceries for our apartment. Nikki had her own little picnic eating strawberries out of the crack of his ass. When I asked him if his wife knew about his ass fetish, he said no, she's too conservative. Yet, he claimed that seeing Nikki helped make his marriage work. He was willing to do whatever Nikki wanted, and most of all, he vowed never to stop sexing her. His explanation left me speechless. After a while, I started to think of the men Nikki dated as suckers. Perhaps that was the only way I could continue to live with Nikki, by blaming the men she exploited instead of blaming her. Besides, as far as I knew, it was only Brian and Ty who were under the illusion that they were Nikki's only man. Nikki swore she loved Brian, while I knew she definitely feared Ty. He was a stone-cold street guy. The rest of her men, I reasoned, were willing participants in her game. Perhaps they really didn't mind being financially soaked by Nikki. After all, they each had a girlfriend or wife at home who apparently loved them blindly. Whenever I tried to talk to Nikki about how she was living, she would remind me that I couldn't possibly have all the answers because I didn't even have one man to speak of. She told me that I would be wise to take some tips from her and loosen up a little. No man is attracted to an upright young girl who took the world so damn seriously, she said. After spending most of my summers alone, I finally decided to take Nikki's advice. It seemed that no men valued a woman like me. My attempts to be strong and straight were not only not appreciated, they went unnoticed. Meanwhile, Nikki's seemingly carefree and spontaneous attitude won thumbs up from all kinds of men. I convinced myself that I, too, could be simple like Nikki. I would dress up, act less intelligent, and take less notice of my surroundings. I would make many fewer comments and would try behaving in a manner altogether more spontaneous and less worried. I knew who I liked. Kyle. I had met him at a week-long annual retreat the African Student Organization had hosted. These retreats were troubleshooting sessions for politically active students from all around the country. By meeting at the end of summer, we were able to get a jump on planning collectively and effectively for the entire upcoming school year. Thus, we were united nationwide on our political goal and theme for the year. These retreats were held exclusively for seasoned student organizers. That way, we could concentrate on strategy and specific projects without having to orient any newcomers. The retreats were held in the student cabins on the agricultural campus. I had spotted Kyle the first day of the retreat, but as Nikki had always said of me, instead of moving in on him, I overthought the situation and hadn't yet even introduced myself. Tomorrow was the last day of the retreat. I didn't have much time. Besides, I noticed another sister definitely checking him out too. Danielle was a sister I respected, but men were scarce, and I decided if I wanted Cal for myself, I had to get rid of her. She must have felt the same way, because all week we found ourselves battling over him. We both tried to outspeak one another in an attempt to grab attention, but I remember what Nikki had said. She said attraction was 85% sex. I was ready to junk the intellectual path and go straight up Nikki style. So I let Nikki do my hair and pick out one of her won't-fail dresses for me. The dress was black, tight, short, and sleeveless. In fact, when Nikki finished with me, I looked beautiful. It had become unimportant to me that I looked completely inappropriate for the retreat I was attending. Nikki smiled and laughed in her wild style. She threw her hands in the air and then on her hips. Pleased with her finished product, she said, "Totally irresistible, girl. Let Danielle try to mess with you now." I stood in the mirror admiring myself. My self-confidence escalated. I took a deep breath. Nothing could stop me now. I was about to make it clear to Cal that I was his only choice. My object, Nikki said, was to fill him with so much desire that he would come to me. As I got out of Nikki's car, she handed me her Ralph Lauren overnight bag. I had seen her use it all the time. I turned up my nose and said, "I won't be needing that yet. I'm just trying to get his attention, exchange numbers, addresses, stuff like that." She continued to push the bag toward me, saying, "You never know what might happen. My motto is it's better to be prepared," she said. I took the bag. When I got to the retreat, everyone was already assembled. They were engaged in a heated debate over whether the campus should be opened up by the neighboring community to use. I stood on the side, scanning the area for a chair. The place was packed. Just then, Kyle caught my eye. His eyes opened wide as though he had never seen me. He motioned me to come over. The dress was already working its magic. Kyle was usually so deep into his work that you had to hit him with a wet cloth to get his attention. Now he was trying to accommodate me like I was an out-of-town guest. I thanked him and sat down by his side. I balanced my legs on the tip of my shoes and sat up to emphasize my curves. When I made points in the discussion, I leaned over and let my cleavage speak for itself, all the while acting as though I was unaware of the effect of my actions. In fact, I pretended that I was sitting there in my usual sweatshirt and jeans. By lunchtime, I was like an open jar of honey. Danielle was rendered invisible in her faded jeans and semi-clean sneakers. Her intellectual performance melted away into obscurity as my dress radiated heat around the room. When anyone asked, I casually lied. "I'm all dressed up because I'm going to my cousin's wedding as soon as I leave here," I would say. When I looked up, I saw Cal coming my way. This was the moment I planned for. He smiled and said, "So where's the party at?" "There's no party around here on a Sunday unless you make your own." He raised his eyebrows and said, "Is that right? So where are you headed? I know you're not looking this good for a retreat." "Oh, so you like my dress?" I put one hand on my hip and raised my leg a little so I could assume a cute little stance. "I'm going to my cousin's wedding reception when I leave here." "Damn, I thought you were coming with me." As I got ready to respond, Danielle interrupted. "Can you believe that students who are involved in our struggle could actually argue over the point of community inclusion in campus life?" I smiled at her and said nothing. I was headed for the kill. She turned to Kyle and said, "Can I fix you a plate of food? We have a little bit of everything." Without even looking at her, he said, "Sure, I'll take some fried chicken, thanks." Danielle went off to prepare his food. He seemed glad. Then he asked, "So, is this your first, second, or distant cousin getting married?" I rolled my eyes and lied. "All I know is I'm glad it's not me." He looked surprised. "Oh, yeah? You got something against marriage?" I looked at my nails and said, "Oh, right now I'm just cool and taking it easily. I don't want to be tied down." "So what's the answer to my question? Is it your first, second, or distant cousin?" "It's a second cousin. Why do you ask?" "Because I figured if it was a distant cousin, you wouldn't mind skipping it and coming with me," he said with confidence. "It depends." Just then, Danielle returned with a plate and packed with food. She was pleased with herself. Cal just took the plate without thanking her. "It depends on what?" he asked, turning back to me. "Or what you gonna do?" "On what you gonna do?" I said, as though I was open to suggestions. Then I added, "I gotta make good use of my dress." I laughed. "Check this out," he said. "You wanna come home with me? There's a nice club that gets some live people and music. They be rocking even on Sunday nights." "Where's home?" I asked, as though it really wasn't important to me. "Baltimore," he responded, looking into my eyes to see if I was bluffing. Now, I wanted to say, "Baltimore, are you crazy? I have to go to class in the morning," but it didn't go with my carefree and open image I was trying to project. So instead, I said in a voice as unexcited as I could make it, "And how will I get home?" "I'll bring you back tomorrow, of course." He held up the keys to his car. "I drove up here with Brad." He pointed to a brother across the room who had also participated in the retreat. Brad can pick up his girl. We can all hang out together. Inside, I was urging myself on to be adventurous. Otherwise, I knew I'd end up spending the rest of the night watching Nikki and Brian as usual. So I said, all right, we can do this. On the way to Baltimore, Cal and I talked about records, singers, fashions, and basketball. It turned out he wasn't involved in community service, politics, or much of anything. He was just giving his friend Brad a ride. He said he had a little business transporting students in his car for a minimal fee. That's how he maintained himself while in school at the University of Maryland. He charged, he said, less than a train, plane, or bus. Besides, he enjoyed traveling because he liked meeting people. We went to Cal's apartment first. He lived off campus in a small, clean apartment across the street from a beautiful wooded area. He dropped his bag, showered, and changed. Then we went to Brad's. Lastly, we went to pick up his girl, Yolanda. When she came downstairs, she was wearing a mini skirt and a tight, low-cut top. She had on 3 gold chains, one of which had a crucifix. Instead of being excited to see her, Brad looked vexed. He got out of the car to intercept her path to the car door. Then he asked, "What did I tell you about wearing your skirt so short? Go upstairs and change." She immediately became steamed. "That's it. That's all you have to say after being away. That's it. That's all you have to say after being away for a whole week?" She threw her hands up in the air in disgust. "Don't act like you didn't know I hate that skirt. You're not my father. I wear what I want to wear. Now, are we going or not? Because I could be taking care of other things. You're supposed to be my girl." Brad tried to reason with her. "If I don't like the skirt, then who are you wearing it for?" Yolanda completely ignored Brad's demand. Brad let it drop. They got in the car. The club was decent. Baltimore seemed to have a surplus of lonely women, so I found I was one of the many women there with a tight, short black dress on. I kept my confidence high anyway. Cal and I was getting along real well, dancing to the music, riding each other's bodies, feeling free. It was when the party and the friendly conversation was over that my body tightened with concern and uneasiness. I thought about my plan of not thinking too much. I tried to refocus on the fun stuff. When Kyle and I got back to his apartment, we talked and laughed some more. I cracked on the funny dancing that country folk did. He laughed about the rugged combat boot-wearing Black Power sisters back home at the retreat. But then the time for joking was over. Kyle was standing close to me, hands extending toward my body. Before I knew it, he was tonguing me down. As he moved his hand over my breast and down to my thighs, I felt him place his hand under my dress. He was pulling on the top of my panties. My body jerked. It was my natural reaction to a man who was moving too fast, but was he? After all, I had set him up. I had measured out, organized, and calculated the whole thing. I had bended, twisted, and shaped more than a chocolate malt, yet something inside of me was freezing up. He stepped back. "So, what's up, girl? I know you're not a little tease." I put a carefree look on my face and said, "Sometimes a little teasing can be fun." "Yeah, and too much can be a pain in the ass." "And who's to say how much is too much?" I said playfully, trying to avoid the inevitable. "I'll say when," he responded with confidence, grabbing my waist and pulling me close again. He began kissing my neck and then licking up to my ears. My body was saying, "Yes, go, yes, go." My mind was saying, "No, don't do it, don't do it." My heart stood by, watching and warning that it was not even remotely involved in this misadventure. So I pushed him away gently and started jokingly running away, easing myself around the table as though he should try to catch me. My mind raced. Why am I here? What am I doing? He caught my shoulder, went for my back, and pulled the zipper on my dress down. My dress was now open. I laughed like I liked it. Finally, he grabbed me and playfully wrestled me down to the floor. I began to understand the thin line between the games that women play, our indecision, and so-called date rape. He began kissing me all over my face. I thought to myself, why not? It feels good. But a split second later, I was completely unexcited. There was no love here. My mind searched for an excuse. Within seconds, I was whispering in his ear to let me get up and go to the bathroom. "Come on, woman, I'm ready now." So I teased and stalled. "Wait till you see what I have for you, then you'll be really ready." "Damn, all right. But don't try to front, girl. You've been sticking those titties in my face and licking them juicy lips all night. I'm ready to taste it all." I picked up the bag Nikki had prepared for me and dashed into the bathroom. I put the bag in the sink and opened it up. Knowing Nikki had something good in there for me, I wasn't disappointed. I pulled out a beautiful red silk teddy outfit. It was high quality, obviously expensive, and I stood admiring it. As I stood admiring it, I caught a glimpse of my face in the mirror. It must have been my own eyes that startled me and woke me up. The spiritual voice inside of me said, "You're pretty ugly at this moment." I knew it was true. I did not love Kyle. Was I acting like my mother, whose loveless relationships had driven us apart? No, I told myself. I wasn't looking for money or support. I was just trying to have a little fun. "Come get in this bed, girl." Kyle was getting impatient. "Don't keep a brother waiting." Yes, I thought Kyle was handsome, but the truth was I wasn't ready to sleep with him. I wanted love, not I wanted love first, not sex. If I had sex, would he even call me back again? Men called Nikki back. I began to panic, standing there in my bra and panties. What should I do? I couldn't just come out and say forget it. Kyle would think I was crazy. Maybe I was crazy. Maybe I should just go and explain my confused feelings to him. No, that wouldn't work. He doesn't even know me. He doesn't even know me. All right, I thought. I'll go out there. I'll apologize for everything. I'll risk making a complete fool of myself, but I will pay him back cash for the club and even the gas and tolls. I decided I would just be bold, straight to the point. I opened the door slowly. As I turned left wearing my panties, I walked slowly down the corridor to the bedroom. Kyle was quiet. He was so playful and eager, I half expected him to jump out from behind the bedroom door. Maybe he would tackle me. Then I wouldn't have a chance to explain fast enough. As I entered the bedroom, I saw him stretched out on the bed in his silk black bikini underwear. He lay quietly on his dark blue satin sheets with the matching pillowcases. I exhaled nervously, then I laughed. The sucker had fallen asleep. Good, I thought to myself. He'll be much calmer when I break the news to him. He's a good guy, I thought to myself. He'll understand. I tapped his shoulder. Kyle, I called. He didn't respond. I tried to wake him, but he was a hard sleeper. His head tilted to the side. I put both of my hands on either side of his face to wake him. Just then, I noticed his teeth were clenched tightly over his tongue. Oh, my God. Tears shot through my body. He's dead. Oh, shit, he's dead. I began to shake and tremble. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to call. I started to cry. I tried to think. My eyes dashed around the room. I searched for the phone. I found it. I pressed O for the operator. Oh my God, he's dead. Oh my God, please help me. Who's dead? Calm down, ma'am. First, who is this? I ignored her question. I didn't want to give my name. We need help. Where are you located, ma'am? My mind went blank. Where was I? No, it wasn't that I had forgotten. I really did not know where I was. I didn't know the address, phone number, nothing. So I said, Baltimore. Baltimore's a big place. What's your address, ma'am? I cried. I don't know where I am. This is an adult I'm speaking to, right? You're not a child, are you? What do you mean you don't know where you are? I quickly lifted the shades on the window. I searched the block for a street sign. I was overwhelmed. All I could see was darkness and a patch of forest. I dropped the phone and started searching through Kyle's papers on his dresser. I found an open phone bill. I located the address and ran back to the phone. Now 911 was on the line. I gave them an address and they promised to dispatch an ambulance. I hung up. I was afraid to turn and look at Kyle's stiffest. So I ran into the living room and picked my dress up off the floor. I couldn't pull up the long zipper in the back of my dress. I started to cry and paced the floor wildly. I wondered how I would get home. I ran into the bathroom and looked in the mirror. My hair was a mess. Just then, a knock came on the door. 3 large white men entered the apartment. Where's the body? They asked. I led them to the bedroom. They looked at Kyle and mumbled some medical terms back and forth. One of them looked at me and asked, Are you a relative? No. What's your relationship to the subject? I'm his girlfriend, I lied to try to dignify my predicament. What's his name? Kyle, I said, not knowing his last name. I glanced for the phone bill. I knew his name would appear there. I picked it up and acted like I knew the last name all along. Johnson, I said. They saw what I did. One of them smiled. They began to glance at each other. Do you know of any prior illness? They asked. No. Has this happened before? I don't know. I don't even know what happened. Do you know how we can contact his parents or a close relative? No, I don't. The medical worker rolled his eyes like he had experienced this scene 100 times before. Then he chuckled. The other 2 medical workers looked as if they were restraining Kyle. One pulled out a solution and placed it under his nose. Kyle, the medical worker commanded with authority in his voice, you've had a seizure. We're in your apartment. We're not going to hurt you. Kyle awakened in a panic. He looked at everyone in the room suspiciously. His face turned violently angry. The anger then turned to disbelief and uncertainty. They lifted him up and began to walk him back and forth. Do you know who you are? I'm Kyle. He sounded groggy. Do you know who she is? They asked, pointing at me. No, he said, looking at me as if at a complete stranger. Is this your girlfriend? They asked, pushing the issue. No, he said with conviction. My soul filled with shame. I felt like a whore. They bundled Kyle into a waiting ambulance. I accompanied him. They said they had to run some tests on him. It appeared that he had had an epileptic seizure. One of the medical workers explained that when excuse me, such a person regained consciousness, it was not uncommon for them to experience a partial or complete memory loss for the first half hour or so. That's why Kyle hadn't recognized me. But I thought, no, he really didn't know who I was, and for a moment I had apparently forgotten who I was as well. At the hospital, a nurse gave me directions to the train station. I took the first train smoking home at 5 that morning. Later, when I told Nikki what had happened, she laughed so hard she nearly died. I couldn't laugh about it, though. I realized that I deserved what I had got. I wasn't Nikki and never would be. I couldn't handle the fast lane. As far as Nikki was concerned, I blew the sex that night, an opportunity to let go. For my part, I accepted that she would never understand how I felt. We were just two different people. I love how the divine came in and stopped that moment, though, because she was in the middle about to be potentially raped. And I've had situations where I've been in where it's like, you know, you under the influence or you feeling like you want to do something with somebody, and then you get in the moment and your spirit is really telling you like, nah, I don't, but I feel like I done let him on, so I have to, and if I tell him no, he gonna be mad. Like, I've totally been in those situations, so I'm glad that the divine stepped in for her and he had a seizure and she was able to get away from it and not do something that she felt she was gonna regret. So here I was listening to Brian and Slick argue about women. I had come to admire Brian. He always was honest with the best of intentions. I secretly wished he was my man. By watching him, I learned how many brothers are good men but naive to the ways of some women. As much as I hated to admit it, I agreed with some of the things Slick was saying. In many ways, Slick was dealing with the real world. Brian was dealing with the way both he and I would have liked the world to be. That night, Brian and Slick's playful argument ended in disaster. Slick kept pushing the issue of women who couldn't be trusted. Brian kept offering his girl Nikki and their relationships as one of the many examples that Slick was wrong. Slick grew tired of beating around the bush. He confessed that he had a friend back home who knew a drug dealer who was banging your girl Nikki. Brian leaped from his chair like a proverbial knight defending his queen. He swung at Slick and called him a liar. Slick told Brian that he loved him like a brother and would never lie to him or try to hurt him. But he was tired, he said, of watching Brian get played out. Then he said, I know plenty of bitches who want you, man, but you're caught up with this hoe. Brian swung at him. Slick ducked. Brian accused Slick of being jealous. He pulled out his knife and accused Slick of wanting to fuck Nikki. Slick said, I already did. Brian cut Slick that night. The police came. I helped Slick clean up the cut, which fortunately was superficial, and played down the incident to the cops. Nevertheless, they took them both into custody. Neither wanted to press charges, and so they were released a few hours later. When Nikki got home, I told her what happened. She got excited that Brian and Slick had fought. She said of Slick that he had a big mouth and was too damn nosy and that he deserved whatever he got. I asked her about Brian. I told her he had been emotionally devastated by what Slick said. She got up and laughed. Girl, don't you know the flavor by now? Brian belongs to me. I'll just tell him something he wants to hear, give him a little something to make him feel good. What did you think? Did you think he would listen to Slick? No, honey, he'll listen to me. Slick can't do for him what I can do for him. She must have been right. Brian listened to her and didn't even try to confirm the truth of what Slick had told him. In fact, Brian and Slick stopped speaking to each other. Then one afternoon, Brian came home early from practice and found Nikki's lips wrapped around Todd's dick. Well, Todd threw Brian out of Nikki's apartment and beat Nikki's ass. Months later, Brian showed up at my dormitory room. He said he finally figured out that he should have been with me and not Nikki. He told me he had always respected me and the way I carried myself even before meeting me personally at Nikki's place. He said he could smack himself for overlooking me. How come I couldn't see it? You were right there in my face. Respectable, intelligent, and beautiful, too. I'm a fool. I wonder why he came and said this stuff to her, knowing that she would be there and knowing that she might know how Nikki was. Interesting. He asked me if I thought we could hook up. I told him I thought he was special, adding, I always thought you were fine with your dark, beautiful self. I confessed that I always knew he was there and wanted him for myself. Then I apologized. But I'm sorry. As much as I want you, I can't, because Nikki's my girlfriend. Later on, I discovered Nikki's terrible secret. She had been molested by one of her father's friends. She had been raped in the basement of her own house when she was 12 years old. It had a strange effect on her, she said. It had caused her to want sex all the time. Instead of becoming terrified of men, she became fascinated with them. Her parents didn't know about the rape. Besides, Nikki said, my mother, father, sisters, and brothers are all just as sexual as me. Sex is good. It can be used for power, for escape, or for nothing at all. She asked me never to tell anybody about it. I agreed, but asked why she had decided to tell me. Because I've always respected you. Might even have wanted to be you. Besides, you're my girlfriend. Ooh, that's deep. Wow, chapter 4, Nikki. Ooh, that's deep. I could see a lot of myself in Nikki. It's when I was in college mostly. And some of the young ladies that I were hanging with were very Nikki-ish. I can also see myself as Sister Souljah. I was not as politically active as her, but I was on the poetry scene, and most of my poems have some type of moral backing to them. The latter ones are the most recent ones from my book that was released in 2017 called The Celibacy Chronicles. Kind of reflects back on that time period of college and the influences of like alcohol, pornography, not having a masculine male figure around growing up, and just being sexual. And so I could see how easy it is for women to manipulate and use men with the power of lust and sex. And that's why I think we have to be mindful of who we share our bodies with and take time to get to know people. And oftentimes we meet people and we like them or their energy at the onset of meeting them, and we let all those emotions get in the way to really getting to learn and know them for who they are, and we introduce sex super early. And I know there's some people that would say, well, it's fine, you can just, if you feel it, go with the flow and have sex, and not that big a deal. But for me personally, I've just been learning that it does matter, it is important, and that it's a spiritual connection. I was watching some video the other day about a couple. They talk a lot about a lot of different spiritual things, and it's geared toward black people. And they mentioned sex is used for two purposes, really: for procreation or for elevating. So if you're not doing it for those two reasons, if you're not making a ritual out of it and being intentional, then pretty much we're abusing sex. And so I just found that chapter really interesting, and that's a very relatable topic of wanting to be the girl that's getting the attention. So just like Sister Souljah, she was following after Nikki. Well, shoot, Nikki seems to have men and money and, people coming after her. Let me try it. And then she got there and was feeling uncomfortable. There's been times where I felt like, I gotta have the big stripper booty like, other girls around here, or the big titties and all this other stuff to fit in so men would notice me, because I've always felt like I get friend zoned a lot and I'm just the homegirl. I still kind of feel that way. I feel like the women that have morals and values and don't show it all and are book smart don't get as much attention as the women who are a little looser and show a little more skin and a little more available. So I've been on both sides of the field. I've been both the smart girl that was giving it up, but I think I was also low key with it. It was more so, I met where the settings that I met you in, and especially if liquor was involved, my mouth get on that liquor, I'm liable to have said anything that would entice you or turn you on and lead to something sexual. So, but I wasn't on Nikki level. I ain't never had like no ballers, which is probably a disadvantage. I should have took more advantage of my skill at the time with people that could impart something into my life besides dick. But yeah, this book is very interesting. It really touches on like a lot of things that people deal with, and people in college that go to college deal with. Everybody talking about go to college, go to college, go to college. You run into some stuff going to college, okay? So I will read chapter 4 sometime this week and upload it. I appreciate y'all for tuning in. I hope you're enjoying the book. All the chapters I've read so far is on YouTube, so that's where this will go as well. All right, y'all. Peace, love, and light.